Diane Abbott is not alone in finding that she is unable to stand at the next election in all likelihood. Lloyd Russell Moyle is another MP who has suddenly found himself suspended from the Labour Party because of a complaint. He says the complaint has been made by an anonymous individual, that it came out of the blue. A quote from somebody who remains anonymous to me. He says it's a false allegation that I dispute totally, and I believe it was designed to disrupt this election. There isn't enough time to defend myself as these processes within the party take too long, so the party have told me that I will not be eligible to be a candidate at the next election. I'm gutted. I mean, does it mean that we should be writing letters of complaint about any MP in the Labour Party? Keir Starmer, for example. Would that suddenly stop Keir Starmer standing in his constituency? This is madness. This is madness. And even if, quote, the Labour Party says the Labour Party takes all complaints extremely seriously and they're fully investigated in line with our rules and procedures and any appropriate disciplinary action is taken, even if this is true, and it should be true, there's a sort of timing involved in this, and it simply smacks of stage management and of questionable behaviour, sleight of hand, magician's tricks. Because the Diane Abbott thing looks extremely suspicious, and now we have another. You may not like somebody in a political party, but the person who is standing in a constituency is primarily standing as themselves. Then they are a member of a political party. And we seem to get this the other way round all the time. We seem to think the political party takes precedence. It's the political party that is the banner that they wave. But they could quite easily come into Parliament as an elected member of the Labour Party and decide the Labour Party is no longer for them and change parties, and they would not lose their seat automatically. They might lose the whip. They do not lose their seat automatically. And that is the point. The parties are wielding too much control. We need to get to a point where we have less whipping, more honesty, less slogan sprouting, more thoughtful debate, less certainty, less pomposity, more mistakes. Because those people in Parliament who are elected to be our representatives are supposed to be like us. They're supposed to make mistakes. They're supposed to be fallible. And yet we expect them to be perfect. We expect whatever is said into Parliament to be used almost as a code in law courts and so on. That's not what it's there for. It's there to debate. That's what Parliament is there for. Parliament is there to debate, which means built into that concept must be the idea that people make mistakes. That people have this idea and it is changed to that idea, because if that's not the case, there is no point in having a debate. Debate is about fostering change. Debate is about opening minds. Debate is about new information, rather than rehearsing something which has been decided backstage. That's not debate. That is theatre. That's not debate. That is pantomime. And I think we've gone a long way from real parliamentary democracy. And what I find so interesting is if you listen to parliamentary TV, and I do, if you listen to Parliament, in fact, I do it quite a lot when I'm working, and so some people say, "Oh, what do you do all day? You make 12 videos a day." Actually, I don't. I make 14 if I can. I make 7 in the morning and 7 in the evening if I can. But the rest of the time, I either teach or I animate, and I'm getting quite quite far with my animation projects at the moment. So far that I'm hoping in the next 2 or 3 weeks I can share some of them with you. But animation, traditional 2D animation, takes an enormous amount of time. And for the most part, I work in silence. But every so often, when there's a procedural thing to draw, I switch on parliamentary TV, or Parliament TV, whatever it's called. And I find listening to debates in the House of Commons is very dull. Listening to debates in the House of Lords is endlessly interesting, with interesting information and changes of mind on either side of the House, on either side of the chamber. That is exciting. And yet it's the House of Lords, which is the chamber which merits all the discussion about change and improvement. The House of Lords seems to me to be getting it right. It's the House of Commons which needs serious change, and I suspect that the only way it's going to get serious change is with some form of proportional representation. That won't happen, of course, if Labour gets a staggering majority. It won't happen if the Conservatives limp in on a thin whisper. But it might happen if the SNP and the Liberals were to get a sizable majority. It might happen if the Conservative Party was genuinely heading for a disaster. But I don't see it happening personally. I looking at the reality, I don't think it's going to happen within the next 20-odd years, which is a shame, because that's one way to improve the quality of the chamber. Another way to improve the quality of the chamber is to exhort members to actually listen to one another rather than jeer, and to get away from seeing the media as being the first port of call. The first port of call should be Parliament, and that requires a very strong and charismatic speaker. And Lindsay Hoyle has failed that test. Although he's a very nice man, he's failed the test absolutely by demonstrating bias and ditheriness. A speaker cannot afford either.